On this episode, we sit down with Eric to determine if AI is going to make it harder for you to get a job.
At M2 Technology, we're on a mission to make IT accessible to everyone. Join us on our journey to demystify the ever-evolving world of business technology. Are you ready to get unplugged?
Welcome back to IT Unplugged. I'm Brandon.
And I'm Eric Hussin.
Eric, I'm very excited to talk to you today. Congratulations, by the way. You're now the owner of Express Employment Professionals, right? Sorry if I can get it out right.
Yeah, right. It's a mouthful.
Yeah. Can you kind of walk me through kind of what that business is and how it came to be that now you own it?
Yeah. Well, thank you, Brandon. And Express Employment Professionals is a full-service recruiting and staffing firm. So we service companies from the ground floor all the way up to the C-suite through our search. So headhunting and staffing services, which is evaluation to hire. So we've been around for a little over 11 years. I was an employee there for a little over 3 until I bought the business from the former owners, Matt and Kim Sullivan, who are still on as employees now. And as far as how that came to be, it was planned pretty early on in my tenure there as far as what I wanted for my career and where they were with the business itself and what they wanted as an exit strategy. So the stars aligned a little bit there, and we went through a ton of different exit routes there. And the one that we landed on was me buying the business outright, and we executed that in December.
Yeah. Is there, I know a lot of people out there are probably listening to this and they want to become business owners themselves.
Yeah.
So what, that's a hard leap. And it's interesting that you already had that planned, almost, years in advance. What is it like internally that was inside you that said, hey, I want to be an owner?
Yeah. I think people that own businesses, that's what they always kind of wanted to do. For me, I've been comfortable with either owning a business or being in the C-suite and running a business. But when I started at Express, it became very clear to me that this is the company that I want to run for quite some time. And as far as the execution of that, it's not straightforward, whether it's a franchise like Express or a small business or even medium-sized or large business that you're looking to acquire. There's a lot of various steps and hoops that you have to jump through that can kill the process just like that. So it's a long road, one that's relatively complex. But when you have a good support system, team behind you, the family backing, as far as emotional support, you can accomplish a lot of great things.
Yeah, you kind of mentioned a little bit that you've been, in that realm before and stuff like that. So how has your experience in, sales operations or sitting in that C-suite kind of made it an easier transition for you? And then maybe what's something that you had to learn quickly? You're like, oh no, this is a new skill I gotta make sure I have to do this.
I'll start with the latter there, learning something quickly. So when you buy an existing business, one that's been around for 11 years, there are a lot of vendors to pay, especially in a recruiting firm. Everything we do is vendor-based, and then there's obviously payroll, which you can never miss, so you got to be on top of that. So your organization has to go up a level, especially your financial organization. I've always been the guy that can go into meetings, take phone calls, and maybe I'll take notes to be polite, but I never actually use them because I can retain the information. That's all out the window now. I have so many names and payment dates that are going through my head. Some are automated, but they only get automated for the minimal balance, and the vendor doesn't allow you to change that. So you got to go and you got to pay off the remaining. You got to be on top of your stuff all the time. So that has been the biggest change when buying an existing business for me, is the organizational aspect gets 10x'd. And as far as my skill set that's translated over nicely, it's been team leadership and sales, quite frankly. Recruiting is in every form, whether it's with Express or another business, it's a sales-based business. So when I started as a professional recruiter, I had a sales background, and I used that and then improved on that to be successful in the professional recruiter role. Then I had a management background as well. And then I moved into the managing director role, and I used that there to help grow our search division. Then when it became clear that I was going to be buying the business and the plan was about as real as it can be, it's always kind of at 70% until the paperwork's signed. Then I took a more all-encompassing role with the staffing side of our business as well and started managing that team. So I'm blessed to have the kind of the well-rounded experience, but a lot of that came from Matt and Kim. Who were my colleagues. They're now my friends. They have been my mentors. And I think that's an important topic to touch on too, is mentorship, because it's such a buzzword, right?
Yeah.
What makes a good mentor? in my opinion, typically it's your boss.
Yeah.
If you have that kind of connection, right? There's no one that can understand the business better and what you're going through than the person that gave you the tasks. And I think as a mentee, you have several responsibilities, but the most important one is, how do I make my boss's life easier for them? What can I take off their plate? What can I learn from them? And how can I give and not always take from them? And taking that approach has done me wonders, and our team has kind of echoed that with myself as well. And it's really healthy balance to have.
What do you think it'd be like if you didn't have those people that were in the business and like mentors and like individuals to bounce questions off of? How much more difficult would it be?
It wouldn't have happened. It wouldn't have happened. You need two compliant parties to buy a business. You need complete financial transparency. I would never recommend buying a business without knowing the SDE for the last 3 years of whoever owns it. And if you're not familiar, SDE is basically like the small business version of EBITDA, right?
Okay.
It's how you measure the value of a business, anything under $5 million. So you have to know what they're pulling out of the business, and not everyone's transparent with those numbers, right? It takes a special breed and a special trust to give that to you. You got to know the burdens, you got to know all the vendors, you got to know what your expenses are. Then you have to have someone who's willing to teach you that stuff. I've never seen like a financial profit loss cascade before in my life. I've never had to.
Yeah.
And so getting taught that very methodically while also doing my day-to-day duties, and eventually it becomes second nature. And so I had the team, or the mentors, invested in me to make sure I had those skills and could develop them.
What a unique experience. And like, you kind of said you're blessed with this. And, one of the triggers for getting a new IT vendor is usually I've just acquired this business or I've taken over the business, and it's not as you always describe, where it's like, yeah, we're building to this point, or there's so much transparency. It's like we're finding out all the negative stuff like with them, because they're like, I've had this business for 2 months, and we, do some network. We're like, oh my gosh, like all this stuff is reading back to the server that's not existent, and this is why everything's slow. And it seems like you were in a position that was really beneficial, that you got to see everything and had that transparency within it. And I don't know, what do you think is like a time frame for when you should feel comfortable, like as a new business owner, where you're like, hey,
I'll let you know. Learning along the way and just being able to troubleshoot. I think we even told you about the fax machine problem. My fax machine was down, which weirdly is important because apparently these healthcare facilities do not email.
No.
But finally figured it out with just calling the actual HP, and then I called AT&T, and it's just back and forth for hours. When I fix a fax machine, that might be my greatest accomplishment as an owner. So a lot of it is just getting your hands dirty until you find the answer, and then knowing who to call that can give you the ones that you don't have answers for. Yeah,
and it's like a revealing process as you go along. I'm assuming with everything, but just awesome that you had that mentorship. And then the fact that, a lot of people will exit a company and then they're just like, well, I'll see you later. I'm in Door County, and now I'm fishing. See, but you have people that are in there that you're still allowing you to be mentored and stuff.
Yeah, exactly. And most small business acquisitions have some sort of an exit plan. Now, typically that plan is 3 to 6 months, right? Mine with Matt and Kim is 2 years, and it's for several reasons. One, the most important one is I need them. I need to go and I need to drive new business and scale our current clients while they run the operations and help me with the finances, because it is complex when you have a team as large as ours when that team expands in staffing, because we pay several associates every single week. It becomes a very large burden financially to manage. And so I have that expertise, I have those best practices, and I have people that could do it if I ever had to leave for a week or just be out on the road doing sales calls. So, you got to find a way when you do acquire a business to figure out what the best exit strategy is for the current owner. For a lot of people, that is 3 to 6 months. 3 months is plenty. Like, the owner doesn't want to be there. They're demotivated after a while. But Matt and Kim are in no rush to get out of the business. Like, this wasn't a pressure sell for them. They just found the right person that wanted it, and now is the time to execute it. And they still have several years where they can stay on and be a part of the business.
Yeah. Well, I'm excited to see what that looks like, and then kind of what you do with it. So, and kind of speaking of that, transformation, not saying the business will completely transform, but I'm kind of curious when it comes to technology, how technology and maybe AI are making a difference in the recruitment field, whether it's either finding the right talent or placing the right talent. I mean, I'm sure it's just like you throw it into AI and it's like, oh, Sally's great for this company. It's all easy and done, right?
No, it's not that easy. AI has been such an enigma in the recruiting world for several years now. And it has to do with the tools. So a lot of these companies on these major platforms make claims that AI is helping you match candidates to jobs. And it does. But you'll find that the jobs are too nuanced for the AI to always be accurate. So what a lot of these companies are doing is they're consolidating their services right now, and they're bumping up their prices, which is due to, some are claiming it's due to AI and the efficiency that it brings. But we're not necessarily seeing that align. So one thing that AI is for sure doing is guaranteeing our job security right now. There is no replacement for getting on the phone and finding the right people. I'm sure you deal with as much as I do, but I probably get 20 to 30 LinkedIn AI automated messages a day,
yes,
emails, things like that. And I pay them no mind whatsoever. What I do pay mind is when a sales rep calls me and gives me an honest pitch as to what they're looking to provide to me. And then I give them a call back if I don't answer, and we have a conversation, right? There'll never be a replacement for that. Sending out bulk messages with AI or being able to match candidates in theory, even though one's located in Chicago and this is an on-site role, like AI is still being worked out. I'm confident that it can get to a point where it really helps with efficiency. But right now it is not there. What is there right now is, I call them data scraping tools. And that might be a little bit of a harsh word to say, but we use a company called Lucia. And what it is you have a name of, who you should be talking to at a company, but you don't have their information. So all you got to do is type in their name to Lucia, and it'll spit out the email, their phone numbers, and you can make a cold call from that. And it's been an absolute game changer for us.
Yeah. I'm curious, because you mentioned data scraping and different things like that. And, I don't know if we want to throw it under AI or not, because it gets better with AI.
Yeah.
But I remember when we were hiring, we started some businesses on the East Coast back in the day for a grocery retailer when they expanded. And we'd have 1,000 people applying, and we'd use a tool that would look for keywords in it, what I mean, and scrape it. And I just felt like we were losing out on so many people that didn't have the right keyword in their resume. And I'm going, okay, we just eliminated 500 people because they didn't use, growth mindset in their resume. How weird is this?
Yeah, and that's a common complaint amongst applicants right now is they're saying, oh, my resume got auto-rejected by the ATS of the company they applied for. And that's not really the case. When that happens, what the company is doing is exactly what you said. They're setting very strict parameters of what they expect on keywords in your resume. And if you don't have those, then it could get auto-rejected, sure. But companies shouldn't set those standards so strict. They should be filtering through those resumes manually and making the call themselves. AI is not a replacement for someone knowing what the job actually entails. Yeah. So, yeah, it's a balance there for sure.
Yeah, and maybe that's one of my perceptions too, or maybe it's nice to tell yourself AI auto rejected me.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so
it's so rare that that's the case. Maybe for a big conglomerate, but locally here, we really don't see that a whole lot. Yeah,
not a thing. Okay. Yeah, it's really interesting. We had a individual at the Deep Ear Chamber event gave a keynote, and he was talking about how somebody had a 7-page resume. Yeah. And he's and it was a young kid. He's I just needed every keyword possible to be stuffed in there in case it came through. And, he did a in-person interview, and the kid was, awesome. And I think that speaks to that human element as well, of who, you don't always know. Well, I don't know. I guess I want your opinion on that. Yeah. How much do resumes reveal about an individual, and how much can you rely on them, I guess?
Yeah, it's so case by case. I think in today's age, resumes are getting muddier and muddier due to the COVID epidemic, which really made work tenure shorter. A lot of times for good reason, but a lot of people that are applicants still haven't bounced back and found that forever job after they left their COVID job. So they worked this one until they got a pay raise at that one. And then they're still looking for that fit. Then there's still that war between employee, employer for remote work, hybrid work. And with a consolidated workforce, employers be kind of eliminating redundancies. Yeah. They're expecting more from their employees but are paying the same. This is a blanket statement, right? This is not the case everywhere. But as far as how the resumes reflect, I always tell, especially salespeople, your resume absolutely has to justify your salary. I've interviewed several salespeople the last couple of weeks that claim to be the top producer at their company or the top 7 out of 1,000, but there's no numbers on the resume.
Yeah.
And if you can't justify that, saying, hey, I brought in 1.7 million sales in Q1, this is what my pipeline looked like, this is the percentage of deals I close, then how can you ask for anything? This literally your job as a salesperson, your numbers are front of mind all the time.
Yeah.
So, and it should be the same thing with basically every field. You got to cater the resume towards the results that you had, not the skills that you have or the systems that you worked in. Those can be secondary, but the top line should be the results that you produced.
Yeah.
So there's still a disconnect between applicants and companies as far as expectations there. And I think a lot of that goes to people are worried about their work history, so they're filling it up with buzzwords that these companies think they want.
Yeah. And that's, as someone that's hired before, sat down, those drive me nuts. Where you sit down and you're like, so tell me about a time, and they're like, well, I would do this, or I would, or it's like really general.
Yeah.
And you just like, you lack the trust when you walk away, right? Because you want, I would assume, at least this is just my opinion, like you want zero objections when you walk out of that room if you're a candidate, that like you don't want red flags in someone's mind. And I feel like a lot of times the vagueness is that thing. It's like, yeah, they said they did it, but they never told me how or when or gave me the hard data on there. And it you know, like salespeople get paid, you know, so if you're not bringing it in and it's an easy job to bounce.
Yep, the vagueness is a problem, and also the misleading about your tenure at places is a problem. So you have two options if you have short tenures places. One, you can have a first impression that maybe I'm a bit of a job hopper.
Yeah.
Okay, you can explain that once you get in the room. Maybe there's very logical reasons as to why you're a job hopper. Layoffs happened with a lot of companies.
Yeah.
I'm willing to give those people a chance. It's all about the person. What you can't explain is when I do employment verifications that you lied about the dates.
Yeah.
That's a second impression. And if your second impression with me is that you lied to me, then I can't trust that.
Yeah.
So I'd rather have a borderline first impression where maybe you don't get in the room, maybe you do, rather than someone that lied to me. And we've had that conversation with our candidates multiple times.
Oh man, that's tough.
Yeah, it is tough. It's uncomfortable. That's what it is.
Sure.
But you have to be honest. You will get found out if you lie on your resume, whether it's with this company or the next one, but that stuff compounds. The city of Green Bay is too small.
Yeah. Okay. This is way off topic, but no, I love this stuff. So, you know, I'm a job hopper. Okay. A little bit. I know that sounds bad. Like I'm not, but like my tenures are shorter at places because I was like, I'm like, oh yeah, this is cool. We did the thing. Like, let's see what else is there. Yeah. You know, and I love M2, and I don't think that's, my wife joked. She's like, you're on what year? She's like, how much longer you got? You know, 'cause she messes around with that. But I think it's interesting because like, people are looking for a lot more fulfillment in their work these days. Yes. I feel like, so, you know, and like the next generation that's coming up, and I'm no spring chicken, but you know, I've worked with some younger individuals, and there's like this mix where like, I want this fulfillment in my work. And then there's another camp that looks at work and they're working to just like live the rest of their life. Like it's not, you know, they're just like, I'm going to do this thing. And sales is like this hybrid sales. I was very surprised when I was in it. Like, yeah, I'm going to work this job for a year, and then like maybe I'll get laid off in the summer so I can go travel a little bit, and then I'll just go get another job. So do you think that, I guess like that camp, is that going to leave like a really bad, because they're early in their career, is that going to leave like a bad mark that's going to be hard to recover from? Or as a culture and the people that are hiring, are we going to start thinking like, okay, that's what this generation does, you know?
Yeah, and it's hard to put a generation into a box like that, but man, do I see it too with all the generations, quite frankly. There's a lot of people that take a sabbatical because their kids are going off to college, or they're playing high school football and they want to be able to go to the games, and whatever the case might be. With all that said, with all the job hoppiness, if that person finds the right role, would you stay? Yeah. What would make you leave? Right? And if those answers are justifiable, then maybe it works out. Yeah. So there is still that disconnect of people wanting more from work, and typically that's work-life balance, and typically that's remote work, right? Companies are pulling back as a whole on the remote work, and so finding those needle in a haystack opportunities where you can get that job, then competing with people that have strong tenures, have the numbers to back it up, and then also seem like an ideal fit, that's a tough competition. Does it happen? For sure. But it's just lowering your percentages of finding the career you want.
Yeah. Very interesting. And, I'm curious what it will look like later as well. And it is bad to generalize a certain, like this generation does this thing. But you always have that contrast between who are the people that are actually hiring versus who are the people, and sometimes they've been around for a long time and they have a different viewpoint than the people that are just coming into the workforce and stuff. So,
I say we've had people that have interviewed and we ask about a large gap in the resume and they say that their child was in middle school. And that's a hard thing to dig into. Like, okay, there's a lot of children in middle school and their parents work full time. What's different about this middle school experience that made it so you couldn't work? Sure. Like, it's very uncomfortable to dig into that.
Yeah.
With that being said, this company is paying us a fee to find the right person. So you have to do it.
Yeah. It's part of your job.
It's going to be uncomfortable for these people that have been out of the workforce for a while. But if they have valid explanations, or at least they found the right fit, they can explain why they add value to the organization, that they plan on staying there, there's no reason why they can't do that.
So we're kind of talking, okay, so we went off on a random tangent, but I love it because the generational stuff is fun. With that being said, we talked about AI, maybe how it's not at the level that is this perception. We always say everybody just throws AI on stuff now because it's the buzzword. But what is like some technological advances that you've seen that have really made an impact when it comes to recruiting and job placement?
Well, an impact can go one way or the other, but the ATS systems have become far more advanced. We've upgraded one called Aviante, and the learning curve for that is quite huge. We came from a very simple one before that called Big Biller, and we as an Express corporate level made the decision to move to Aviante. And it has instant matching capabilities, like you put someone in there and it can tell you what job they're qualified for, or at least give you an idea for it, right? So call that AI integration if you'd like. With that being said, it's very cumbersome too. It's not easy to get the resumes in there. You can't just parse an email with 100 resumes like we used to be able to do. So everything is so individualized. So I don't think it makes us more efficient. I think you can maybe make the claim that makes us less efficient.
Oh, okay.
But it does make us more pointed.
Yeah.
So, and as far as like third-party tools, I'm still looking for that third-party tool that has a positive ROI, and not just by a couple $1,000s, but by a 10x multiple, because these tools are costing anywhere from $5,000 a year to $50,000 a year when done at scale, right?
Yeah.
And so we test a lot of them. I've still yet to be blown out of the water to say, hey, we need to get on board with this AI tool because it's going to take our game to the next level. And I think we're close. I think these companies will have a breakthrough here, but we're just not there yet.
Yeah. Well, I love the honesty around it because, as like our company continues to grow and we go, where do we scale? Where do we scale in efficiency from a tool set, and for me in sales, I'm like, oh, well, there's this thing and there's this thing and there's this thing. And then that's the big part is like, is there an actual ROI on this? And is it just making my life a little bit more complicated than it needs to be?
Right. Like they have AI writing tools for candidate submittals that record your notes for candidate calls and take notes for you. Okay. We're probably doing 1 to 2 candidate submittals a day. It takes us 5 minutes to write it up after the phone call. Is that really saving us enough time? Are we so much busier with our other work? The answer is no. Like the ROI isn't there for that. It's a nice feature, but you're going to get bogged down with tools if you invest in every single one of them.
Yeah, 100. We were just talking before the podcast where I'm talking about like sales rooms, right? So you bring someone on and essentially you have everything built in, so you don't have to reinvent the wheel every single time. You can send them something, the quote, all this stuff, and then I'm thinking in my head, I'm like, okay, I'm spending hours and hours doing this. Does my customer care? Like how much does my customer care? How much does the person hiring you to bring on the people, like what is the ROI? And I think we're in this point where you can't ignore the technology, but you also don't have to. Sometimes the earliest adopters aren't always the most efficient, because people are still figuring it out.
Yeah, and there's 2 questions, and you highlighted one of them. Does this help my customers? And does this drastically help my team become more efficient? If the answer to both of those is maybe, or no, move on.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So as we kind of wrap up here, I'm curious, what's, Green Bay area? It seems like we're becoming a little bit more of a hub with, Titletown Tech and different things like that for IT, technology, startups. What do you see as maybe some of the most prevalent jobs or job skill sets that are needed right now within the area?
Cybersecurity, with AI and the growing complexity and especially the way that phishing has picked up, cybersecurity just scales along with that. Companies are desperately looking for cybersecurity people. Then mentioning AI, anybody who can program AI, manipulate AI, that is a relatively new skill set that companies are looking for, and one that people in the tech industry, especially the younger generation, should be excited to hop on board. It's a good paying job. I have no idea how you do it, but that will be the next wave in the technology field for sure. And there's still full stack, back end, front end developers as well, depending on the company. But companies are finding ways to be efficient with that as well. So back in 2021, when companies are just looking for a Python developer, that's null and void for a lot of companies at this point. You need to be pretty darn well-rounded to be able to contribute to software development these days.
So with that being said, a lot of these people in those fields are used to working, maybe they're not in Green Bay, but we want them to come to Green Bay, or, they're used to working remote. What could an employer do right now to attract that kind of talent?
As far as remote talent or people that are in Green Bay?
Well, both, I guess, because, some people are like, I need them in the office. Some people, because we're bringing people back, and we could get into the efficiencies and inefficiencies of being in office or out of office. Yeah. But we won't go down that road. Yeah, another podcast episode. But I guess just like in general, what should an owner that's like, hey, my business is going to grow by 10%. I need this many people. Maybe in those roles, maybe not. But like, what is it? Like, what's their mindset need to be to attract some of these best talents?
Yeah, that's a tough one, Brandon. I'll give you an answer, but it's a bit of a spitball, to be honest with you. I think a lot of it depends on the product that you're creating. People that are developing software specifically, they're creative type, and they want to join a cause that they believe in, right? When you mentioned Titletown Tech, the Tanduos, the Webfitters, those are exciting companies to be a part of, and they can attract talent because people like to do that type of work. Anything that's like a consultancy or an agency, you have such a variety of tasks that you get to do from week to week or month to month, whatever the case may be, that those people will be satisfied with that. And so Green Bay is growing in that respect, but the other thing is money. There's a plethora of options for the high level talented people, and if you can attract them with a compensation package, equity stake, whatever the case may be, that is how you will win these people over.
It's money.
It's money. Yeah.
Well, I mean, working for, you do see, I have a remote role in California. It's like, why is the pay so high? It's like, well, like that's that area of the country. So
area of the country and what it takes to get the best.
Yeah, absolutely. Well, this has been really, really insightful. I appreciate you coming on here.
Of course.
And I'm excited to see what Express Employment in Green Bay does and how you build this company and continue to build it from the foundation it has. So
I appreciate it, Brandon. Thanks for having me.
Yeah.